Yo, let's dive right into it. So it's this clip flying around the internet right now of Mike Pettine, the former assistant head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. He went on the podcast called The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, right? And I listened to the whole interview, right? So they talked about a lot of things that was centered around the coaching carousel of the Cleveland Browns, how many quarterbacks, they've been through for the past couple of seasons, stuff like that. It's a Cleveland Center show. So when it got to the point of one of the co-hosts asking Mike Pettine and basically giving his opinion about how he felt that Brian Flores would have been a great fit for the Cleveland Browns going forward as the head coach, it got a little interesting. Now, I got the clip right here. So let me know what y'all think. Let's get into it.
Wanted Brian Flores to be the next coach of the Browns, but obviously either he's not interested or they're not interested. I don't know. I know he has that reputation. You worked with him. He was tough on the players in Miami, and I think he's been vindicated. What's your thoughts on Coach Flores?
Probably not many that I would prefer to share. I mean, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's why I spent this past year on offense. I was there 24 and 25, or 23 and 24 on defense. So, I'll take the high road on that one.
Wow. Did y'all hear that? Man. Now, I'm going to say this because I'm a Viking fan, and it seems like every offseason, the Vikings cannot avoid some type of drama, right? So when the co-host asked Mike Pettine about, how he felt about Brian Flores and whatsoever, he immediately went to, we didn't see eye to eye. I spent, more time on the offensive side of the ball this year, all that being said. But I think about it like this, though, y'all. Could it be Mike Pettine basically being forced out by the organization just to free up the, space for Brian Flores, right? Because Mike Pettine's been with the team ever since Kevin O'Connell got hired as the assistant head coach. I mean, nobody really knows what his duties are, what he does day to day, what he's helped with. But he has a defensive background because he's been a defensive coordinator in this league and a, head coach. And I will understand that once Brian Flores came into the team, he kind of wanted to run the defense his way and he wanted to bring in his own staff, which he did. And the defense has been flourishing under, Brian Flores. But this is what raises the question for me, right? Because there is a lot of talk, for the past couple of weeks, especially with, the Brian Flores, situation with him interviewing for defensive coordinator jobs and trying to get a head coach job, that there were some things in the building that, was going on behind closed doors, that there was a schism, as you would say. And when those reports came out, there wasn't really anything linked to it or anybody coming out and saying the name it was, but they said it was tension behind closed doors in the locker room. A lot of people thought it was Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores or whatever, for considering the offense hasn't really played, up to expectations in the past couple of seasons. And Brian Flores' defense has been the mainstay on keeping this team in games. So that was like off top, where people thought it was. But it's actually Mike Pettine. Mike Pettine came out and said that him and Brian Flores didn't see eye to eye. And this is no indictment on Brian Flores as a defensive mind or as like a coach, leader of men. But I raised the question like this. Could Brian Flores' personality and the way he does things, is that really off-putting to people in the league? Because I always, thought, Brian Flores was, a stickler, a defensive guy, wanting it his way or shit like that. But I don't understand it right now, right? I just think there's way more to this story, than Mike Pettine had to say on that, on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And I really wish that he would have, indulge a little bit more of what's really going on behind scenes with these coaches with the Minnesota Vikings. Like, we probably going to hear more about it later. You feel me? Like, more people are going to, start poking and diving into it. But man, here we go again, y'all. Here we go again. The Minnesota Vikings cannot avoid any type of drama. But just like I said earlier in this video, could it be that the Minnesota Vikings said, all right, look, Brian Flores, you're going to go out there and interview for head coaching jobs, and, that that's what you want to do. And, the Minnesota Vikings did offer Brian Flores a contract extension last year. He didn't take it because could this be the reason why? And then, the first press conference that they had was kind of late. And we do understand that there was a lot of things going on with Minnesota outside of football, but it was like a week late after the season ended. And that was one of the first things that came up was, hey, Mike Pettine is no longer with the team. He's retiring, blah, blah, blah. Now I just want to know why. Did Mike Pettine get pushed out? And are the Minnesota Vikings doing the right thing with catering to Brian Flores? This upcoming off season and the regular season is going to be real interesting. I'll just say, y'all, man, y'all got to stay tuned because I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how things turn out. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. I'm out.